Good morning, everyone. We are here today as House Democrats joined by advocates from all across the country to once again make clear our unwavering, unyielding, and unequivocal support for reproductive freedom and for the Women's Health Protection Act. I want to begin by thanking Representative Judy Chu, the lead sponsor of this very important piece of legislation, this critically significant piece of legislation, as well as everyone who has joined us today, in particular, the two co-chairs of the pro-choice caucus, Congresswoman Barbara Lee and Congresswoman Diana DeGette, two fierce advocates for reproductive freedom. Under the leadership of Speaker Emerita Pelosi, and doesn't it feel good to be in the Pelosi room? A space for liberty and justice for all. Under the leadership of Speaker Emerita Pelosi, House Democrats passed the Women's Health Protection Act not once, but twice. And now as we stand on the eve of the Dobbs decision, one of the most egregious and offensive decisions that the Supreme Court has ever rendered, Brown v. Board of Education is in the Supreme Court Hall of Fame. The Dobbs decision is in the Supreme Court Hall of Shame. Because unlike other enlightened decisions that the Supreme Court has reached throughout the years, which enhanced freedom, the Dobbs decision restricted and limited and undermined freedom for women all across America. And so we have launched this motion to discharge effort for an up or down vote on the Women's Health Protection Act that now has support and signatures from 210 Democrats. And so we're only 8 members short to bring this enlightened, important piece of legislation to the floor of the House of Representatives. And we're committed to making sure that we do everything necessary for that to happen. As Democrats, we believe in a woman's freedom to make her own reproductive health care decisions. As Democrats, we will continue to stand on the side of women. We will continue to stand on the side of reproductive freedom. We will continue to stand on the side of access to health care, because abortion care is health care. And it is health care that everyone should have access to in the United States of America. So we will oppose extreme MAGA Republican efforts to criminalize abortion care. We will oppose extreme MAGA Republican efforts to impose a nationwide abortion ban. We will oppose extreme MAGA Republican efforts to limit access to contraception. We will stand up for reproductive freedom. We will stand up for reproductive freedom today. We will stand up for reproductive freedom tomorrow. We will stand up for reproductive freedom forever. And we will continue to show up and speak up and stand up until the Women's Health Protection Act is the law of the land. It's now my honor to yield to one of our distinguished co-chairs, a champion of reproductive freedom, and a co-chair of the pro-choice caucus, Congresswoman Diana DeGette.
Thank you so much, Leader Jeffries. Tomorrow marks the one-year anniversary of the U.S. Supreme Court's devastating decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. It will be the first time as a nation that we've stopped to remember a fundamental right that we no longer have. For 1 year, women across this country have been forced to live with the reality that they no longer have the right to access the health care they need. They've had to live with the fear that one of the most consequential decisions of their lives may no longer be theirs to make. The number of women who have been harmed in just the last year as a result of this decision is simply too many to count. The pain and the trauma that they have felt has been unimaginable. The inhumanity, incomprehensible. The refusal by the majority in this body to act has been inexcusable. Over the last year, we've heard incredible reports of the harm this has caused. We heard about the 10-year-old rape victim who was told that she would have to carry her baby to term. We've heard heartbreaking accounts of women who were forced to carry their dead fetus around in their womb for weeks because the doctors were afraid of criminal prosecution. We've heard from women who've been turned away from hospitals and told to wait in the parking lot literally until they were on the brink of death. I'm not making this up. This is what is happening in the United States of America today. Now, I want to say thank you to my leader, Hakeem Jeffries. I want to say thank you to the women and men who are standing behind us, the Congress people. And I want to say thank you to the American public who realize the very fragility of this right that's been taken away, because we are not going to stop until we fix this problem. We are not going to stop until Roe versus Wade is the law of the land once again. I'm going to humbly suggest that my colleagues across the aisle might listen to their constituents who overwhelmingly believe that people and their doctors and their clergy and their spouses or their partners should have the freedom to make their own health care decisions, not politicians in Washington. And all that needs to happen is 8 of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle need to come over and sign this petition, which will put a bill on the floor, which will once again make Roe versus Wade the law of the land. So I want to thank Barbara Lee, Judy Chu, all the leadership here. We got 110 signatures to put this on the floor in 2 days. And it was because of a real effort and a desire to show in this anniversary of Roe versus Wade, we are not giving up and we are not giving in, just as our friend and our mentor John Lewis told us over and over and over. Poll after poll shows the American public is with us. So anybody who refuses to make this the law again nationally is out of step with their constituents, and we are not going to stop until, once again, everybody in this country can get the health care they need. I'm now so honored to introduce my friend, my colleague, Barbara Lee.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair Diana DeGette, for that introduction and for your tremendous leadership. To Leader Jeffries, to all of our leadership team, to our members, and especially to our people who are here today who have been on the front lines for so many years fighting to stop this day from happening. Unfortunately, now we have to mark a day, the only day we've ever had to mark where a constitutional right has been taken away. So, Speaker Emerita, I want to thank you for your leadership and for really bringing us all together once again. Starting last year, making sure that the Women's Health Protection Act passed the floor, what was it, 2 years? 2 times the floor of the House, so thank you again. Let me say a couple of things, first of all, why we're here today, because last June, we know that a handful of corrupt, extremist, hypocritical justices argued that the issue of abortion should be left to the states to decide. If the GOP cared about letting people decide their stance on abortion for themselves, they wouldn't have banned the option for half the country. If they cared about democracy, they wouldn't have overruled a constitutionally protected right supported by 80% of Americans. If they cared about life, they'd invest and protect children, families, and communities instead of letting them go hungry and letting gun violence run rampant. But the GOP made very clear that they care about only one thing, and that's control. Control over our bodies and control over our lives. As Congresswoman DeGette mentioned, we gave every member of the House a choice this week. Do you trust your constituents to make their own health care decisions, their own life choices, or will you continue to force your personal extremist views on the people you were elected to represent? To my colleagues who signed on to the discharge petition, thank you so much for supporting the right to reproductive health care. To Republicans who stand in the way, because of your inaction, 1 in 3 women, including trans, non-binary people, have lost access to abortion. And those people are disproportionately from Black, Latino, and indigenous communities, LGBTQ plus people with low incomes and people with disabilities, people who live in rural communities. 1 year into this fight, we must be reminded that those are the people we are fighting for. We're fighting for every American who doesn't have the cash on hand for an emergency abortion or the funds to travel to another state. We're fighting for the Black women facing even higher maternal mortality rates, unfortunately, thanks to the repeal of Roe. We're fighting for the doctors and the healthcare providers who are choosing between jail time and helping a person in need. And we're fighting for every woman who finds herself in the same situation I was once in, pregnant and forced to risk my life and to be criminalized because politicians thought they could make decisions about my body. I know what life was before Roe. This last year, we've seen what it is now for so many women. But make no mistake, we will never back down, and we're not going to go back. Together, we will continue to work toward a future where our reproductive freedoms are no longer up for debate. It's our bodies, our choices. So thank you all again for keeping up the fight. I want to turn this over now to my good friend and our WHPA champion, our woman warrior. Oh, excuse me, it's going to, well, she is our WHPA champion, Catherine Clark, who whips us into line to make sure we're protecting women's reproductive health care. Thank you all again.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you to Leader Jeffries, to our co-chairs of the Pro-Choice Caucus, to the entire caucus, and all of my colleagues and advocates here for your leadership, for spearheading our fight for the freedom of Americans to make their own healthcare decisions. Not a decision to be made by the GOP, not by judges. It should be made by women, by families, in consultation with their doctor, in guidance with their faith. And for 1 year, we have seen that freedom be trampled on by extremists. For 1 year, they have punished women and girls for the crime of needing basic health care. Clinics are boarding up. Doctors, OBGYNs are choosing other careers. They are afraid to do their jobs, and it's everyday Americans who are paying the price. Americans like Amanda Zarowski of Texas. She was 18 weeks pregnant when her water broke, and there was nothing that could be done to save the pregnancy. And her doctors had to tell her that they could not perform the abortion care that she needed, and that she had to go home and wait for infection to set in. So she did, and it did. And it cost her time in the ICU. It almost took her life. And she has been unable to get pregnant since. This is the state of the United States of America right now. But the Women's Health Protection Act will ensure that abortion care is once again the law of the land, that access is restored. It will kick politicians out of our doctors' offices and will enshrine into law the truth that Americans already know, that they deserve the freedom to make their own health care decisions. This bill deserves a vote on the floor. Put the votes on the floor. And I don't know how my colleagues are going to go home for 4th of July celebrations and talk about freedom and equality and liberty, knowing that it would take only 8 of them to come join us and sign this discharge petition. But whatever it is that they choose, House Democrats and the American people will not rest until we get this done and restore the freedom that families, women, and the people of this great country deserve. Now it is my pleasure to introduce the author of the Women's Health Protection Act, a lifelong champion for reproductive justice, the unstoppable, undaunted Congresswoman Judy Chu.
Well, my goodness, thank you, Whip Clark. Yes, I'm Congressmember Judy Chu from California. I'm the author of the Women's Health Protection Act, or WHPA, which will restore the right to abortion everywhere, no matter your zip code. Today, I read the story of one of the millions of women whose constitutional rights have been ripped away because of the Dobbs decision 1 year ago. Another woman from Texas, Danny, lives there and was pregnant, but her water broke too early. The chances of her baby surviving was very low, but she could not end the pregnancy because of the abortion ban. She called other states, but appointments were not available for many weeks. She developed an infection and went to the hospital, but of course, no provider would perform an abortion. So they forced her to go through induced labor and delivery. They wouldn't even contemplate a C-section. They forced her to be awake and present so she could give birth to a dead baby. That's the cruelty faced by millions of women today. Over a dozen states now have bans or near bans on abortion. 1 out of 3 women in America have lost access to abortion in their home states. Average time to abortion clinics has tripled. Many women who are undergoing a miscarriage cannot obtain an abortion. Now, women have less rights than their grandmothers. I've introduced WHPA since 2013 because extreme far-right politicians and judges, and now the MAGA movement, want to make this country one of forced birth. They've captured the Supreme Court, which faces a legitimacy crisis we've never experienced in our lifetimes. But on ballots from Kansas to California, from Michigan to Wisconsin, the American people have spoken. With their vote, Americans have said over and over and over again, we want reproductive freedom. We want bodily autonomy, and we will not stand for politicians or unelected judges standing between us and our health care decisions and making those decisions for us. That's why we need WHPA. WHPA would create a federal right to abortion care, free from those state-level abortion bans that chip away at reproductive freedom. This Congress, our leader, Hakeem Jeffries, made WHPA H.R. 12, which means it's one of House Democrats' top 10 priorities of the Congress, and I thank him so much for that. This week, I joined our incredible pro-choice caucus co-chairs, Diana DeGette and Barbara Lee, to file a discharge petition to force a House vote on WHPA. In just 2 days, we received 210 signatures on our discharge petition. That means we have to have 8 Republicans join us in order to protect abortion rights for all. It's just 8 Republicans that stand between us and bringing back abortion rights for all in this country. Today, we have one message. House Democrats are in this fight until everyone who wants an abortion can get it, regardless of race, ethnicity, what zip code they live in, or how much money they make. We will not back down. We will not go backwards. Thank you all very much, and now I would like to turn it over to our incredible chair of the Democratic Women's Caucus, Chairwoman Lois Frankel from Florida.
Okay, hello. All right. Hello, good morning. Lois Frankel. First of all, thank all my colleagues for being here, but most importantly, if we can just, everybody step to the side. Let's show these young. Look, we're really here for these young people who deserve to reach their dreams and fulfill their hopes on their own terms. I often say that unless lightning strikes, I will not need an abortion. I'm at that age. But the fact is, I was alive like Representative Lee when abortion was illegal, and I found a friend in a bed full of blood because she had to obtain an abortion outside the healthcare system, and we don't want to go back. It's been 1 year since Roe v. Wade was obliterated by Donald Trump's Supreme Court. The Dobbs case, as my colleagues have said, have led to legislatures in state after state passing abortion bans and restrictions. And if my home state of Florida's 6-week abortion ban goes into effect, the entire South of this country will be walled off from access to legal abortion. The post-Dobbs laws are forcing women to stay pregnant when they don't want to or incur costly and burdensome travel to get the care that they need. And the Republicans of Congress have doubled down. Just go into any committee room and you'll hear it, right? They've doubled down with nonstop attacks on reproductive health care. And Democrats are here to say we are fighting back, will not back down from our fight to protect women's access, to protect reproductive freedom, and to make their own choice whether to start or to continue their family. And this Women's Health Protection Act will protect all of us with that. And I want my Republican colleagues to know that the women of this country are watching, and they will not soon forget who continues to stand in their way to control their own body, and they will not forget who's caused this crisis and who refuses to protect women and our rights. And no matter what, I'll repeat what's been said, we are going to continue to fight for access to abortion care, regardless of a person's zip code. And with that, I'm going to yield to a feminist supreme, a perfect example, really, of the feminist men. Thank you, men. I'm talking about you, the chair of our Democratic Caucus, Pete Aguilar.
Thank you so much, Lois Frankel. Thank you, Leader Jeffries and Whip Clark. We're grateful for the leadership of the Pro-Choice Caucus, the Democratic Women's Caucus, and of course, Judy Chu, our author of this important piece of legislation, the Women's Health Protection Act. It's a privilege to be standing here in a room named after a champion of reproductive freedom, Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi. Today, House Democrats will be heading back to our communities. Some of our members will return to states that have banned abortion in the last year. Their constituents live in fear of a miscarriage that could result in their arrest. Children have to cross state lines to seek the care they need because that care had been established for the last 50 years as a basic right. But some will return home to states that have served as an oasis of reproductive freedom. People have come from all over the country to California to seek an abortion, and they've come to the area that I represent and been welcomed in California's Inland Empire, in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, and throughout the Golden State. But after what we've seen out of House Republicans over the last year, watching them go after contraception and go after abortion care and birth control. Make no mistake, they intend to ban abortion nationwide. We can stop this. With the help of so-called moderate Republicans, we can pass the Women's Health Protection Act and codify this right into law. These members are going to hear about this from their constituents and from us over this break, and we hope that they return back to Washington ready to engage in bipartisan discussions. With that, I would like to turn it over to a champion of reproductive freedom, a woman who this room is named after and has made this piece of legislation a priority when she held the gavel as Speaker, Nancy Pelosi.
Let us thank Pete Aguilar for his advocacy from the standpoint of the chair of the Democratic Caucus of the House of Representatives. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your leadership. Mr. Leader, thank you for making this one of the top priorities in terms of the number. To our co-chairs of the pro-choice caucus, thank you for your relentless and persistent leadership. The day this happened, that night, Diana DeGette was on the phone to say, we're bringing up Judy Chu's bill tomorrow, and we did that with all of our Democrats. Thank you. And Barbara, thank you especially for pointing out the economic disparity in all this and how it affects people so unfairly in terms of their communities, even rural communities, so unfairly. I don't know what to say about Lois Frankel, except that she gets right to the point and with great clarity, and thank you for championing of all of this. And yes, Catherine has been the champion of vote counting on all this, and when she says we need 8, we need 8. Right, Diana? Yes, I would say about Diana, when Diana says we need a number, we need a number. So thank you all for your leadership. Let me just say this, because this is I'm so honored to welcome you to this room to talk about freedom. You see these T-shirts. It's about freedom. Freedom to vote, freedom to be ourselves, freedom to debate, freedom for everybody. Freedom for everybody. What I think it's important to note, though, is this, and associate myself with all of the concerns expressed already. This bill passed with 0 Republican support, 2 times in the House. Then we talk about people traveling to another state. 3 Republican votes. Is that a sign of disrespect for women? 3 Republican votes on the bill to enable women to travel to address their reproductive health needs. The one that gets me is the Right to Contraception Act. The Right to Contraception Act. 8 Republicans voted for that. So understand this. This is not just about abortion, or that would be reason enough. This is about total respect for women exercising their free will to honor their responsibilities, to meet their health needs. I don't know if any of the Republicans know what's going on in their families. I just don't know. But I do know that they're doing great harm. I wish they'd all take a political Hippocratic oath to do no harm to the health of American women and let them decide. Let them, not let. No, it's our right to decide, which is in the Constitution, the right of privacy. It was upheld by the court over 50 years ago. It's about privacy. And then it's about the precedent of the court, both of which were ignored by this court. And we have a remedy. It's called a discharge petition. Just think, 8 people over there, just with the stroke of a pen, could bring to the floor a debate about freedom in our country. What are they afraid of? Are they afraid of their constituents? They're going to have a lot more to fear in the next election. We can guarantee that to them. It played a big role in the last election. It'll even be bigger in the next election. They've been really clear about wanting a national ban on abortion. Make no mistake, people ask me all the time, why do you say that? Well, because they do. And what is their motivation? Well, they'll know about ours. And ours is, we aren't going back. We ain't going back, but I'm going back to our distinguished leader, Hakeem Jeffries. I yield back to him. Hakeem.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for your strength, your clarity, your power, your leadership. And the only thing that I will add as we close, when we get the majority back, we're going to make one adjustment to the plaque that hangs outside of this room, the Speaker Pelosi caucus room. We're going to add 4 words: greatest of all time. And so we're thankful for you, Speaker Pelosi. We're thankful for everyone. I'll simply just end with this observation. The scripture says that suffering may endure during the long night, but joy will cometh in the morning. As a result of the extreme MAGA Republican efforts and their right-wing co-conspirators on the Supreme Court, they've inflicted pain and suffering on the women of America for the last year. But we will not rest until reproductive freedom is restored throughout this country. We will not rest until the Women's Health Protection Act is the law of the land. We will not rest until it's morning time once again in the United States of America. Thank you.